So one of my first videos was about the Timex Fairfield, and in that review I kind of said that it was a good budget alternative to an MVMT watch. And it turned out that was kind of a controversial statement. A lot of people said that the Timex Fairfield didn't need to be a budget alternative to MVMT because Timex is superior in every way to MVMT as a brand, and there's no reason to for the Fairfield to aspire to be an MVMT watch. Anyways, there seems to be some debate about that, so I figured today would be fun. I'm going to do my first comparison video, and we're going to take a look at the Timex Fairfield and the MVMT one more time, and we're going to put them head to head and do a little comparison and see which one I think comes out on top and which one's the better watch. So let's take a look. Okay, so this week we're going to be doing a comparison video between the Timex Fairfield and the MVMT 40 series. These are both watches that I've reviewed in the past few weeks, and you can go back and check the full reviews if you'd like to get a more detailed analysis of the two watches. But I think they're two very similar watches, and they have kind of some similar styles to them, and that's actually, again, that was the reason I purchased the Fairfield, is I was looking for a watch that looked like my MVMT 40 series watch, but didn't cost as much, and that's how I found the Fairfield. But we're going to take a look at the two of them, because when I said that the Fairfield was a good alternative to MVMT, like a budget alternative, again, a lot of people took issue with that, and they said, well, Timex is a better brand anyway, so it doesn't need to be an alternative to the MVMT, it's just a flat-out better watch. And so we want to take a look and see if that is actually the case. So we're going to be going through 7 categories, and that would be the case, the band, the style, the brand, the durability, usability, and value. I'm going to be assigning a point for whichever watch I think wins in that category. If it's a tie, they'll both get a point. We'll see which one has the most points at the end, and that one will be the one that I consider the better of the two watches. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first category we're going to be looking at is the case of the watches. Both of them have a 30-meter water resistance, which I think is adequate. You know, for a dress watch, should be fine. But neither one distinguishes themselves in that way. But I'm going to give the point to MVMT because they have a full stainless steel case, whereas the Timex, like most of their models, it's a brass case that's been plated with like a chrome finish on it. So it's just got a uniform, polished look, which to me doesn't look quite as nice. Maybe looks a little cheaper. Not to say it looks cheap, it looks very nice, but a little bit cheaper than the MVMT, because the MVMT, with their full stainless steel case, they were able to do some polishing around the bezel and then some brushing on the sides to sort of give it a contrasting look. And I think it's a much more interesting looking case because of that. Also, having the full stainless steel is very nice. I consider that a plus as well. So I'm going to give the point for that one to MVMT. Next, looking at the band, maybe this isn't fair, because if you recall from my Timex video, the reason I picked that particular Timex was because I didn't like the band, and apparently nobody else did, and it seemed like having that band drove the price of that watch way down, and I was able to swap it out with a new band. So obviously the MVMT is going to get the win here, but it's not just because Timex had a bad band on it. And you can find Timex Fairfields with better bands if you pay a little bit more for them. But no, I think the MVMT has actually a pretty nice band on it. I like the way it looks. It's held up fairly well for the last year and a half that I've been using it. And it has quick release pins, which is very nice. It's something that you don't typically see on watches maybe in this price point. So let's move on to style. Now this one, so again, both watches have very similar style. They kind of both have this very minimalist look where you don't have any numerals on the face, just, you know, little batons around the hour markers. They're both very nicely done, very nice dials. But Timex, I think, has kind of tried to come up with something a little bit unique. It has sort of a very soft, rounded look on all of the hour markers and on the hands. And it's something that looks different from most of the other minimalist style watches I've seen out there. And so I really like that. I like that they tried to come up with their own identity for this watch rather than just sort of copying everyone else. And it seems like that's more what MVMT did. It's a very nice style. It's very classy. It looks good on the MVMT, but it doesn't really distinguish itself from any of the other minimalist watches out there. So maybe that's enough. But for me, I say I like the style on the Fairfield better than the one on the MVMT, just because it's something a little bit unique to that watch. Let's move on to the brand. Now, this is where it's going to get controversial, and this is where most of the controversy is. Both brands, I think, have some pluses and minuses. On the plus side, Timex is a very old brand with a lot of history. It's a brand that has a reputation for creating low price, high quality watches that are a great value, very functional, very durable. And again, it goes back, over 100 years. It's been around for a long time. They've had manufacturing in England and in America. So a very rich history from like a horological perspective. MVMT, on the other hand, is a very new brand, but they've done a lot of great marketing and really connecting with younger people and getting people kind of back into wearing watches. They're very fresh. And they really, particularly among people who are not watch enthusiasts, they've done a great job of marketing themselves as a very nice looking, reasonably priced watch. And I think that's a great thing. And it's a brand that a lot of people recognize. People who are not watch enthusiasts will see my MVMT, and that's the one that they'll tend to comment on more than any of the other watches that I've worn. Because they recognize it, they've seen it on social media. Probably some of their friends have it, and so MVMT has done a great job in that respect of doing it. On the negative side, so Timex on the negative side, here's where I was before I was really getting into watches. I kind of considered Timex to be like just a cheap Walmart watch, and I think it's hard for them to shake that image because they've done so well at marketing themselves at a low cost that their watches are for sale at Walmart and a lot of low cost retailers. So my image was that these were just kind of cheap watches that you can, again, buy at Walmart. MVMT on the negative side, if you do a little bit of research, you quickly find that on top of all of that flashy marketing, there's not a lot underneath. They're basically, they seem to be, again, pretty decent watches, but nothing particularly great about them. They're just, they're manufactured in China like so many other quartz watches. There's not a lot in the actual watch that really separates it from the competition. And maybe you might have a hard time even justifying the price point that they're charging for their watches. But that's that's if you know that. So where this kind of comes, so which brand is better? You ask. It really depends on what you're looking for, I think. I'm going to give a tie to this one. I'm going to say they tie on which brand is the better one because it really depends on what you're looking for in a watch, and maybe more importantly, who you're trying to impress. If you're trying to, if you want to impress your friends who are, younger and have a high view of MVMT on social media, they're probably going to be a lot. You probably get a lot more comments off of an MVMT watch than a Timex. If you want to appreciate Timex for their history and their style and their value and the horological significance behind it, obviously Timex is the way to go for you. But I think both brands bring something different to the table, and so I'm going to give it a tie there and call that one a tie. Durability, this one's hard for me to measure because I haven't owned a Timex for a long time. I have a friend who has a Timex though, and he has commented on how durable it is and how much he loves it. And Timex generally has a reputation for high durability. On the other hand, with my MVMT, I haven't had any problems with it. I've been using it regularly for the last year and a half, and it has shown to be very durable for me. I know it's kind of a small sample size, but yeah, so my experience with the two watches and talking to people, they seem to be pretty similar in their level of durability. So I'm going to give them a tie. Both watches have warranties. Both companies are reputable companies that are trying to protect their reputation, so I would imagine both companies are going to honor their warranties. And so I'm going to give the durability side, I'm going to give it a tie. Usability, Timex is going to win this one hands down because they have Indiglow. Indiglow is their backlighting feature. So on a Timex watch that has Indiglow, which is a large number of their watches, so even their low price budget watches often have the Indiglo feature. You just push the crown in and the whole face of the watch lights up, so it's perfectly visible in the dark. It's an active backlight. It doesn't need to sit underneath a lamp for a while to kind of charge up. You just push the button, it works, it turns on, you can read the watch no matter how dark it gets. Incredibly usable, great feature. MVMT has, the 40 series does not have any lume whatsoever. It's a very nice looking watch, but it only works when there's light. If you can't see the watch, it's completely functionless. So once it gets dark, if you're outside or if you're in your bedroom at night, there's no way to read the watch unless you shine a flashlight or something on it. So Timex, again, I think Indiglo is one of the coolest features you can get on any watch, much less ones in these price range. So I give them the value on that. The thing that I really like about the Indiglo, especially on like a dress watch, lume doesn't tend to look that. It's hard to kind of hide the lume on a dress watch to keep the style that you want. And so, a lot of times you see a little bit of lume on dress watches, and sometimes you notice it and like, oh, that kind of looks a little bit weird. And that's, maybe one of the reasons why MVMT didn't go there. I'm probably also trying to save on cost. But with the Timex, you can really have the best of both worlds with that Indiglo. You can have, a really nice looking dial that's not cluttered or Lume has such a sporty feel to it for me. And yet, with the Indiglo, you can have a very dressy look. And yet still have the full functionality of being able to read in the dark with the Indiglo. And the Fairfield is a dressy looking watch. I think that's just a great feature on that. So definitely usability goes to Timex. Finally, value. Basically, if you look at the cost of the two watches, MVMT retails for about $120 for the 40 series. The Fairfield, I believe, is usually around $80, depending on the band you get. And so right there you find that the Fairfield is generally much cheaper, and oftentimes with the Fairfield, like I did, you can find heavily discounted ones, which is even better. MVMT, it's hard to find discounted ones because they tend to they only sell from their website, and I think from Amazon as well. So you don't tend to find as many discounted models. So that said, so obviously when it comes down to price, Fairfield is cheaper than the MVMT, but overall, like comparing the two watches together, having held both watches and looked at them, my impression was that they're very similar in quality and in what they offer. Sure, the MVMT does some things better than the Fairfield. Fairfield does some things better than the MVMT, and you can take a look down the feature list. You can say, well, I want the stainless steel case and I want the nicer leather band, so maybe I want to go with the MVMT. Or you want to say, maybe I want that Indiglo feature because I want to be able to read in the dark, so I'm leaning more towards the Timex. You can pick and choose on features which one you want. But at the end of the day, I think, my impression would be that both watches should probably retail for about the same price. I would say they're both worth the same amount of money, having held both of them. That said, the Fairfield charges a lot less. So that means it's a better value. Like, that's the definition of a better value as far as I'm concerned. So I definitely give the win to Timex on that one. So that said, that gives us, let's look at our totals here. If we total it all up, so we've got the Timex edging out the MVMT 5 points to MVMT's 4. Timex wins the comparison, the competition, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so I would consider Timex Fairfield the better of the two watches. This does not mean that the MVMT is a bad watch, and there's still reasons that you might choose the MVMT over the Timex Fairfield. But for me personally, say my 40 series broke and I was looking to get a replacement of a similar style watch, I would probably lean more towards the Fairfield than getting another MVMT at this point. So that was this week's comparison. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, please hit the subscribe button if you get the chance, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Talk to you later. Bye.